Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada Gaur Premanandi Hari Haribo Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Padaprajak Acharya Asatara Sasa Sri Srimad ISKCON BBT Founder Charles Divine Grace AC Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namancharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sakohosh Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopanath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Braja Mumanam Ki Jai Shri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Shri Lachal Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Your most beautiful Lordship Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ki Jai Shri Shri Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai Samabeta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Going back to home, back to Godhead Ki Jai ISKCON New York Yatra Ki Jai Brihad Badanga Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai International Food for Life Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga glories to Srila Prabhupada. No, you can control it. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamutirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God and Lord Narayan, unto Narayana Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, who is the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly attending the Srimad Bhagavatam class and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, whose worship with transcendental songs becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're continuing our reading from the fourth canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is chapter 9, Maharaj returns home. Today's text is 17, right? That's why I prefer to use the HDMI cable, but yeah, we can switch to that source. Okay, now you have to switch to HDMI 1. Yes, no. If you can't get that to work, then go back to the other source. Okay, are we there? Satya Shisho Hi Bhagavang Stavapada Padmam Ashistatanu Bhajatak Purushartha Murtahe Apyevamaya Bhagavan Paripati Dinan Vashreva Vatsa Kamanu Grahakatarosman Satya Shishohi Bhagavang Savapada Padmam Ashish Satana Bhajatak Purushartha Murtahe Apyevamaya Bhagavan Paripati Dinan Vashreva Vatsa Kamanu Grahakatarosman Satya Shishohi Bhagavang Savapada Padmam Ashish Satanu Bhajatak Purushartha Murtahe Apyevamaya Bhagavan Paripati Dinan Vashreva Vatsa Kamanu Grahakatarosman. Please chant. Apyevamaya Bhagavan Paripati Dinan Vashreva Vatsa Kamanu Grahakatarosman Satya Shishohi Bhagavang Savapada Padmam Ashish Satanu Bhajatak Purushartha Murtahe Apyevamaya Bhagavan Paripati Dinan Vashreva Vatsa Kamanu Grahakatarosman Satya Shishohi Bhagavang Stavapada Padmam Ashish Satana Bhajatak Purushartha Murtahe Apyevamaya Bhagavan Paripati Dinan Vashreva Vatsa Kamanu Grahakatarosman Satya Shishoti Bhagavang Stavapada Padmam Ashish Satana Bhajatak Purushartha Murtahe Apyeva Bhagavan Paripati Dinam Vashreva Vatsa Kamanu Grahakatarosman Satya Shishohi Bhagavang Stavapada Padmam Ashish Satanu Bhajatak Purushartha Murtahe Apyevamaya Bhagavan Paripati Dinan Vashreva Vatsa Kamanu Grahakatarosman. Anyone else? Okay, synonyms. Satya, real. Ashisaha, compared with other benedictions. He, certainly. Bhagavan, my Lord. Tava, your. Pada Padmam, lotus feet. Ashihi, benediction. Tata, in that way. Anubhajataha, for the devotees. Purusha Artha, of the real goal of life. Murtehe, the personification. Api, although. Evam, thus. Arya, O Lord. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Paripati, maintains. Dinan, the poor in heart. Vashra, a cow. Iva, like. Vatsakam, unto the calf. Anugraha, to bestow mercy. Kataraha, eager. Asman, upon me. Srila Prabhupada's translation for this verse. My Lord, O Supreme Lord, you are the supreme personified form of all benediction. Therefore, for one who abides in your devotional service with no other desire, worshiping your lotus feet is better than becoming king and lording it over a kingdom. That is the benediction of worshiping your lotus feet. To ignorant devotees like me, you are the causelessly merciful maintainer, just like a cow who takes care of the newly born calf by supplying milk and giving it protection from attack. Please repeat. My Lord, O Supreme Lord, you are the supreme personified form of all benediction. Therefore, one who abides in your devotional service with no other desire, worshiping your lotus feet is better than becoming king and lording it over a kingdom. That is the benediction of worshiping your lotus feet. To ignorant devotees like me, you are the causelessly merciful maintainer, just like a cow who takes care of the newly born calf by supplying milk and giving it protection from attack. So the Prophet's purport. Dhruva Maharaj was cognizant of the defective nature of his own devotional service. Pure devotional service is without material form and is not covered by mental speculation or fruitive activities. Pure devotional service is therefore called ahaitaki, unmotivated. Dhruva Maharaj knew that he had come to worship the Lord in devotional service with a motive, to get the kingdom of his father. Such an adulterated devotee can never see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. He therefore felt very grateful for the causeless mercy of the Lord. The Lord is so merciful that not only does he fulfill the desires of a devotee who is driven by ignorance and desires for material benefit, but he also gives such a devotee all protection, just as a cow gives milk to a newly born calf. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the Lord gives intelligence to the constantly engaged devotee so that he may gradually approach the Lord without difficulty. A devotee must be very sincere in his devotional service. Then, although there may be many things wrong on the devotee's part, Krishna will guide him and gradually elevate him to the highest position of devotional service. The Lord is addressed herein by Dhruva Maharaj as Purushartha Murti, the ultimate goal of life. Generally, Purushartha is taken to mean execution of a type of religious principle or worship of God in order to get material benediction. Prayers for material benediction are intended for satisfying the senses. And when one is frustrated and cannot fully satisfy the senses in spite of all endeavor, he desires liberation or freedom from material existence. These activities are generally called Purushartha. But actually, the ultimate goal is to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is called Panchama Purushartha, the ultimate goal of life. Lord Chaitanya therefore taught us not to ask from the Supreme Personality any benediction, such as material wealth, popularity, or a good wife. One should simply pray to the Lord to be constantly engaged in His transcendental loving service. Dhruva Maharaj, being cognizant of his desire for material benefit, wanted protection from the Lord, so that he might not be misled or deviated from the path of devotional service by material desires. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavani Paschachadeshtarane Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtang Shapitang Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyahang Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishavangscha Shri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagana Ragana Tanvatam Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitangsha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpaturubhya Shah Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. So in the Mangala Charana that we just recited, we give Vaishnava Homa, Vancha Kalpatarubhya Shakri Pasanavacha. But sometimes in our translation we leave out an important part. Every morning we recite it also. We offer respectful obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees. Sometimes we leave out that line, just like desire. And it's actually in the very first line of the verse. Vancha Kalpataru. Kalpataru means a desire tree. So what is a desire tree? In his, you could say forward to the Brahma Samhita, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta wrote that very nice, and that Prabhupada repeated when he recorded it also, giving the explanation of what does it mean, Chintamani Prakara Sadvishu. So he explains that in this world we have trees that can give one thing, one fruit, one flower, but in the spiritual world all the trees are desire trees, Kalpataru or Kalpavriksha. They can give whatever you ask for. If you want to prepare some watermelon juice for Krishna, you can go to any tree and ask for watermelons, and they'll give you. And for the same tree can also give you peaches or plums or whatever you desire. Now, as he states in that forward, that the devotees don't have any desire to fulfill, but still they have the desire to satisfy their Supreme Lord. So this point is being driven here also, that the Lord is a person. Even after taking to devotional service, it takes quite a bit of time to realize that, because we're brought up in the Nirvishesha Shunyavadi society, that impersonalism, voidism. Even when we take to religiosity, we take to some particular path of religion, we pray to God the Father, give us our daily bread, but we have no conception of that person who we're addressing as Father. You ask anybody who's praying the Lord's Prayer every day, offering the Lord's Prayer every day, what does God look like? They still have this vague conception, at best, an old man. He's the oldest person, created everything, so must be old, must have a beard. No, we see, as Prabhupada used to say, these pictures of Krishna, you never call them paintings. You see the picture, Krishna is sitting there, eternally a youth between 16 and 20 years old. He's got his flute, he's always surrounded by his devotees, and the Kalpavriksha and Chintamani, everything is described clearly. So we should take that to heart, we should meditate on that. We are all persons. We want to be treated personally. If I go to Kadamba Cafe and I order a Thai bowl or whatever I order and I sit down If they brought that bowl and gave it to somebody else, immediately we would feel, hey, what are you doing? Don't you see my number? Number 3, I ordered the bowl. Put it on my table. You want to be treated personally at every step. But when we come to the Supreme Person, we don't want to admit that He's a person. We don't want to admit that God is a person, because then we have to establish a personal relationship and try to satisfy that person. Just like we want to be satisfied, we don't want to be treated just like everybody else, or every one of us. Although ultimately we are insignificant, eternal parts and parcels of the Lord, still we want to be treated, at least in a little way, special. Not impersonally, not as being totally unimportant. Everybody wants to feel special. And Krishna, even though we are eternally insignificant parts and parcels, He treats us specially. Krishna doesn't treat Draupadi the same way He treats Arjuna or Yudhishthira. No, everybody had a very, very special, specific relationship with Krishna. Not just has eternally. Every one of us has a unique, specific, special relationship with Krishna. So we have to always remind ourselves constantly, and that is why deity worship is essential. Prabhupada said, if necessary, we could close down all the temples and live under a tree, but the book distribution must go on. But at the same time, He established temples, just to drive home this point of personal interaction. So Shri Radha Govinda are personal. They're personalities. They're the Supreme Person. Prabhupada used to say, on many occasions, he said, the proof that Krishna is God, Radha Govinda, they're standing on the altar, and we're running around all day serving them, cutting vegetables to make sabji for their satisfaction, cleaning the temple for their satisfaction, going out and distributing their glories for their satisfaction. So we should never forget that. The Supreme Person and His eternal consort are standing there. And one time in Vrindavan, because there was some, to put it mildly, some hanky-panky going on in the temple. So Prabhupada just reminded us from the Vyasa. He said, you see, Krishna's holding that flute. He's got 2 fingers up like this. He said, these 2 fingers can see what you're thinking, what to speak of what you're doing. These 2 fingers can see what you're thinking. So when we approach the Supreme Person, we should be cognizant. That word is used in the first sentence of the translation today. Cognizant means aware. We have to be aware of the fact that Krishna knows everything. He knows me better than I know myself. When you get to be my age, 73 in October, you start realizing that, the sand is running out of the hourglass. Another transition from body to another body is coming up. I may not remember the last one. I don't. What to speak of the one before that, the one before that. Some people remember at least maybe their last life. There have been studies done. But whether you remember or don't remember, that transition is coming up for all of us. And it's not always that you pass away in your sleep in your bed at age 108. Sometimes you leave this world in a very dramatic way, like that recent plane crash in India. 270-something people on board, and 1 person walked out after the crash. And what to speak of those who were happily having their lunch in that medical college. And so sometimes the transition of body is very dramatic, very explosive. Like every day, people are killing each other in wars around the world, not just in Ukraine. Or not even declared war, just on a street. Somebody approaches somebody, give me your iPhone, and they won't give it, so they shoot them. So we should be aware of this fact. We're in this material world, in the Kali Yuga, the worst of the 4 ages, when lifespan is at best 100. Some go a little over, but most don't even make it anywhere close. So when you get to be my age, again, you're understanding that you're at least approaching the last quarter. Even if you live to be 100, 75 means 3/4 over, 1/4 left. So we have to be serious. If we're not naturally serious about devotional service, then this time factor, which is Krishna's energy, and actually it's a form of Krishna. Krishna says in the end of the 11th chapter that Kalosmi Loka Chayakrit Pravidya. Time I am. I'm the destroyer of all worlds. So what to speak of destroying the world, every body within the world will ultimately be destroyed just by the time factor, passage of time. So we should take it seriously and approach the Supreme Person in all humility and ask to be guided out of this mess. We should ask to be guided out of this mess. It is a mess. In spite of so much evidence to the contrary, still every day people wake up and make so many plans to be happy in this world. It's not possible to be happy in this world, at least not by material endeavor. Spiritually, if we make advancements spiritually, then yes. There's that verse by Prabhu Saraswati explaining the features or characteristics of a person who has received Lord Chaitanya's mercy. Kaivalyam narakayate tridashapur akasha pushpayate. Durdang tendrayakala sarpapataya prodkatadang sarayate. Vishvam purna sukayate vidimahinjadis sakitayate. Yat karunya kataksha vaivavatam tam goram eva sumak. So he says, for one who has received the merciful sidelong glance of the Lord, not even direct glance, just the Lord gives you some sidelong glance that bestows His mercy in that way, then these are the characteristics. First thing, kaivalyam narakayate. Those who have received Lord Chaitanya's mercy, they don't want to merge into the existence of God. As is mentioned here, that when one becomes frustrated in this material world, then he wants the final solution, liberation into the Supreme, wants to become one with God. But for the devotee, they'd rather go to hell and maintain their personality than to merge into the existence of God, which means giving up your individuality. You can't really give it up, but at least the impression is there that now I've given up the material sphere of existence, I've merged into the Supreme, and I'm one, it's all one. But one loses, yes, it produces bliss in the beginning. One feels, relief from all material misery. We know the threefold miseries in this material world. So one feels relief. No more miseries from body and mind. Don't have a material body anymore, no more material mind. No more miseries given by other living entities like mosquitoes and terrorists. No more even diving miseries. No more storms and heat bubbles like we're going to run into a heat dome, they said, in New York next coming days. The high has been in the 80s the last few days. Now it's going to jump to the 90s. So none of that. But because there's no personal interaction, they come back down. Yene ravindakshiva muktamannas toyastabhavat avibuddha shudeo. Arura krishena parang patam tat padanti ada. Anadarta yusmat angraya. Because such persons, they don't have any regard for the lotus feet of the Lord. We come before the Lord every day and we're straining to see His lotus feet. Maybe they should move on, when tie a little bit more to the left, or so I can get a better, we strain to see it. But they have no regard, which means regard for the Lord's lotus feet means taking wholeheartedly to serving those lotus feet. Devotional service means, that's what it means to be under the lotus feet of the Lord and to regard the lotus feet of the Lord. We want to serve the Lord. But the impersonalists, they don't want seva. But because there's no activity in Brahman realization or Brahman's, existence, then they arura krishna parampata. They come back down to the material plane of existence. And Prabhupada used to say all the time, big so-called liberated swamis, they come down, they open hospitals, schools, and because they have to have some interaction. They have to have some personal interaction. They're claiming it's all one. Then if it's all one, why are you opening schools and hospitals? If it's all one, open a gas station. That's more useful to most people. Even the uneducated, they're driving cars and scooters, and they need to have gasoline. So they defeat themselves by coming back and doing these philanthropic and altruistic activities. So personality, this is the point that's being driven home. Dhruva is a person. He's speaking to the Supreme Person. He's glorifying him in so many ways. And we take that to heart. We're dealing with the Supreme Person. Now, the Supreme Person himself explains in the Bhagavad Gita how to deal with him. Krishna tells us how to deal with him as the Supreme Being. That man mana bhava mad bhakta. First of all, you think of me. Because thinking leads to feeling, leads to willing, leads to activity. And we can't stop thinking, even for a moment. Somebody's at the door. Anyway, we can't stop thinking even for a moment. Those who say they want to give up activity, but they can't stop thinking. And as long as you're thinking, you're going to develop some feeling about what you're thinking about in regards to what you're thinking about. And then when you develop feeling, you're going to will yourself to act in a certain way. So Krishna says, think of me, because if we think of Krishna, then we develop feelings for Krishna. And we will ourselves to act in a way that's pleasing to Krishna. So manmana bhava mad bhakta. And then when you act in such a way that is pleasing to Krishna, then you're a devotee of Krishna. Only devotees of Krishna are concerned about pleasing Krishna. Manmana bhava mad madhyaji. You worship me. We have a tendency to worship great, so-called great personalities. So the greatest personality is God, Krishna. So he deserves our worship. And mam namaskaru. You bow down. Sometimes we get tired of bowing down, but we shouldn't. Prabhupada once chastised one of his disciples, because Prabhupada would ring his bell, they would come in, and the etiquette is that when you come in front of your spiritual master, you pay dandavats. But sometimes the devotees would get a little lazy and they would just like genuflect, when you go down on your knee and put your head on the floor. And Prabhupada said, what is this? You're supposed to pay full dandavats. If you read Shrutakirti's memoirs. Coming in, you offer dandavats, and then when you're leaving, you offer dandavats. And this can go on back and forth. So sometimes, again, devotees can become lazy, but Prabhupada was reminding us, no. So similarly, we shouldn't become lazy when we come into the temple room. We should pay our obeisances. It may be inconvenient because you just left and now you just came back. Doesn't matter. Krishna says, Mam namaskuru. Why does he say that if it wasn't important? Offer obeisances to me. So in this way, we drive home the fact that God is a person. We are all persons. Don't try to lose your personality and treat others as persons. That means a personal way. Approach everybody as a person, even a new person that comes through the door. And that was one of the examples that Prabhupada set for us. That who could be busier than Prabhupada running an international society worldwide, so many temples, so many devotees, and so many headaches. But still, Prabhupada took time to deal with anyone that came for his darshan very personally. Hare Krishna, who are you, what do you do? And give an example. In San Diego. No, actually it was in Laguna Beach. There was one bus driver who had been involved in an accident. He had stopped the bus, some people got off, but some or other, he didn't notice that somebody had tried crossing in front of the bus. So he started up, hit the person died. So of course he was distraught. It was not an intentional thing, it was an accident. And he was, exonerated, it was an accident. But still, it was on his mind. Obviously, if you run over somebody, it's going to be on your mind. So some or other, this person came to the temple and got darshan with Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada, asked him, what do you do? And like that. And then he revealed his mind about that incident. So Prabhupada deliberated. It's not your fault. The person felt so relieved to have a pure devotee of the Lord tell you it was not your fault. Just completely, his mind became satisfied because it was bothering him. Even though he was not arrested or, charged in any way, still he felt some level of responsibility when Prabhupada said, not your fault. So Prabhupada took the time to deal with everybody personally, from the most insignificant, materially speaking, to the most significant. You know, he was dealing with cardinals, like that famous conversation with Cardinal Danielu, where Prabhupada was saying, it says in your Bible, thou shalt not kill. Why are you killing the animals? But the children, they have to eat. And Prabhupada said, no, thou shalt not kill. So Prabhupada was, you know, not shy about telling persons, even big persons like cardinals in the Catholic Church, when they were wrong, that their philosophy was wrong, their activities were wrong. Similarly, Prabhupada again would deal with just ordinary persons. There was one young lady who would come to see Prabhupada. Her husband had died, and I guess there was some pressure from the husband's family for her to not remarry. But Prabhupada listened to her story, and then he asked her, are there any children? And she said no. He said, then you can remarry. So like that, Prabhupada would deal with everybody, whatever level on the spectrum of socioeconomic spectrum, Prabhupada would deal with them individually as persons. So we should learn that. And this morning when we're hearing that a preacher has to be tolerant, because when we go out there, it's understood that most of these people are demonically inclined. They're not nice, no matter how they pretend to be nice. Hi, how are you? And internally, because they're not clean, internally they're not nice. And we have to deal with that. Sometimes they're actively vicious against devotees. There was that story when it was in the Back to Godhead many years ago. One devotee, happened in UK. He was such a frustrated young man that the very first time he saw devotees chanting party on the street, he just spontaneously went up and kicked one of the devotees. No reason, nobody offended him in any way, just he was so full of anger. But gradually over time, he got to know the devotees, got to know the philosophy. He became a devotee. And he was so sorry for what he had done. So, as preachers, we have to be tolerant. I remember in the early days, we were a little bit aggressive because people would say, get a job, and we would say, get a brain. But, you know, you have to be, and the worst mistake we made was being aggressive with our family members, because this was something new. They had no idea what Krishna consciousness was all about. But we would say, you're just a meat-eating demon, leave me alone. But that's not the best approach. It's not the best approach. When you're dealing with family members, former friends, public in general, if all they want to say is, hi, how are you, and, you know, how are you feeling, what is it, then you deal with them on that level. Because Prabhupada said also that if somebody is just develops a favorable attitude towards the devotees, if they just think, these Hare Krishna people, they're nice, they have a right to do what they're doing, they make spiritual advancement. Even if they don't chant, even if they don't eat prasadam, if they just think, you guys are nice, I like you. Jayadvaita Maharaj tells a story, I think it was right here in either LaGuardia or JFK. He was traveling once, and one of the ladies, I guess at one of the desks that you go past, some woman in the airport said to him, you know, hon, I like you people. You really are what you pretend to be. It was a backhanded compliment, but she was expressing some genuine appreciation. You really are what you pretend to be. In other words, we go out on the street, we're pretending to be monks and saintly people, but, you know, we should actually get there. And we will get there. If we keep chanting, keep following the process, we will get to the point where we really are what we pretend to be. Devotees of Krishna. So devotee of Krishna means, because the master is a friendly, Prabhupada used to say, Krishna declares himself. Where does Krishna say that? Famous verse, 529, the peace formula. Who knows? Oktaram yoga tapasam, harvaloka mahesh. Suridam sarvabhutanam. Krishna says, I am your best friend. Not just you, but all living entities. So Prabhupada used to say, if the master is friendly, how can the servant not be friendly? So we have to try. It doesn't necessarily come naturally to us because we've been suffering in this material world. And generally in the material world, misery likes company. If I'm not happy, then I want to see everybody else unhappy also. So we have to consciously try to get away from that mentality. And that's one of the benefits or should be one of the benefits of living packed up together in a temple atmosphere, is that gradually you get to know each devotee individually, and you have a nice individual relationship. And then you can take that out to the public. If we can't get along with each other, if we can't develop a friendly attitude towards, as Prabhupada used to say sometimes, inmates, those who are already inmates living in the temple, how can we genuinely go out and be friendly to the public? We can't. And we see that. Some devotees in their neophyte stage, they can't stand the other devotees that they live with, but they're very friendly with people outside. We literally go out and distribute books even and distribute prasadam. So you're inviting them to come to the temple. Why would they come? If you can't stand those you're living with in the temple, why would anybody from outside want to come and live in the temple? So we have to make an effort, because Kali Yuga means, again, contaminated consciousness. We're pushed by the three modes, basically, or mostly, prominently, ignorance and passion in Kali Yuga. Mostly ignorance, very few are even in the mode of passion, what to speak of mode of goodness. So in spite of that handicapped start, we have to try our best to follow Krishna's recommendations, follow the recommendations of the scripture, follow the example of Dhruva Maharaj. Here he was a 5-year-old boy, but because he was touched by the conscience of the Lord, he could express genuine glorification of the Lord, understanding, showing understanding. We see this in all the prayers, famous prayers in the Bhagavatam. They start out by stating the obvious. You are the Supreme Lord. You are Bhagavan. It's obvious. Why are they stating that? Why are they stating the obvious? For our benefit. So that when we read these pastimes, we can understand. Dhruva wasn't dealing with just some demigod or some, powerful person. And no, the Supreme Person. So he's stating that. He's telling God that you're God. And he's explaining that now I understand my position. I was contaminated. I wanted material, I had this strong material desire to be fulfilled. But now I have you. Now I have your service. I no longer want that. But we know how the story unfolds. Krishna gave him the pole star. He gave him all benediction. Why? If he already had achieved the highest, the darshan of the Lord, why would the Lord give him a nice material situation, and he obviously married, and or Prahlad already at 5 years old, topmost brahmachari. So why didn't he stay brahmachari? Why marry and have children? And we know he had children, grandchildren. So this can be confusing. There was one morning walk where one sannyasi asked Prabhupada this question. He said, Srila Prabhupada, why do pure devotees get married? Because, in his mind, a pure devotee is one who knows material world is a contaminated place, no sense, I don't want sense gratification. So why would they get married? Why not just stay, brahmachari or sannyas? So yes, Prabhupada, why do pure devotees get married? And Prabhupada said, who remembers, who knows? Prabhupada said, because it's natural. So they walked on some more, and then the same sannyasa asked again, but Prabhupada, I don't understand. Why do pure devotees get married? And Prabhupada said again, because it's natural. In other words, it's a natural progression. We see Lord Chaitanya was married twice. Almost all of his followers were married. It's a natural progression. So they walked on some more, and the same sannyasi asked again, but Prabhupada, why do pure devotees? Prabhupada said, you keep asking because you want to get married. Which was, in a way, a slap, because he was already a sannyasi. And sannyasis are not supposed to be thinking about getting married. They're not supposed to get married. If a sannyasi gets married, that's called vantasi. It's like eating your own vomit. But it's Kali Yuga, and these things happen. So when it did happen, Prabhupada encouraged, okay, being a devotee, trying to be a devotee in the material world is like declaring war on the material energy, and yes, there will be a fight. So to fight, you have to fight for a position of strength. So if you're better suited being a grihastha, okay. But we should try not to do that. We should, as I've said many times, good brahmacharis make good grihasthas. Grihastha ashram is not meant for those who can't follow principles. No, just the opposite. If you've demonstrated as a brahmachari that you can follow principles nicely, then you can go on. Because in every step, there's vrat, there's vow. You take a vow as a brahmachari. Not forever, like Krishna himself showed. He went to Sandipani Muni's ashram for just a short time. So in Vedic culture, you could take a vow to be a brahmachari for 1 year, or 2 years, or 5 years, or 10 years. But it should be done in a vow very seriously. But then after that, you can move on to the next ashram. So good brahmacharis who can maintain their vows, and as we were discussing in the Gishtagoshi about a week or two ago, that there's a definition of brahmachari that you must know if you want to remain a brahmachari. Who remembers that verse? It's mentioned in the purport in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Brahmacharis, you're listening? You must know this verse. It's a definition given by Yajnavalkya of what is brahmachari. Yes. Pachakshase. Everybody hear that? Karmana, manasa, vacha. Karmana means your activities. Manasa, your thoughts. Vacha, your words. So in all your activities, in all your thinking, in all your speech, karmana, sarvavastasu sarvada, sarvatra. In all times, all places, and all circumstances. So, karmana, manasa, vacha, sarvavastasu. Sarvatra, maitana tyaga. No connection to sex life, not even in thought. That's a very high platform. So when we come to the Krishna consciousness movement, most of us I joined when I was 21, we're already spoiled. It's not like Prahlad. You're starting at Komar Arcita Pragya, age 5, and then at age 5, no 5-year-old has any thoughts of, and then you maintain that because you're trained properly. But no, when you come and you join at age 20, 21, or older, already completely rotten, spoiled. So you have to be retrained how to not think of sex life, but to speak of engaging in it. So being a brahmachari is a very high stage, an actual brahmachari, and not just one in training. And then when one is properly trained and you're on that level, then when you move on to the grihastha ashram, you are going to avoid so much trouble. Grihastha ashram is not a place to dump those who can't follow vows. No. It's for those who are very good at following vows. So when they make a vow to one woman, they make that vow for life, and vice versa. Like Prabhupada's sister, Pishima, was a good example. Apparently she didn't have a very good husband, but she had taken marriage vows, so she didn't dump him. She tolerated the fact that he wasn't a good devotee, that he had some bad habits. But in our society, Prabhupada's advised, there was one particular case where one woman who was married, she complained that her husband wasn't following principles anymore. Prabhupada said, okay, so you stay in the temple. Krishna is your divine master, husband. I am your father. You come to the temple. In other words, don't use the fall down of your spouse to fall down yourself. Prabhupada said, if he rectifies himself, then you can go back to him. Otherwise, you stay in a temple and serve the deities and like that. So being married is also very serious. To be a grihastha, not a grihamaiti, is very, very serious. So good brahmacharis make good grihasthas, who then make good vanaprasthas, who then make good sannyasis. That should be the progression. And it's a natural progression. It's a natural progression. So brahmacharis sometimes had this mistaken idea that being a grihastha is fallen, I don't want to be fallen. No, it's a natural progression in Vedic culture. You get trained, student life, then you move on to responsible grihastha life, then you move on to responsible vanaprastha life, and then you become a sannyasi. So it's all based on responsibility and upholding vows. And that's why when Bhishmadev took the vow of not getting married, it was such a big thing. Dridda vrata. Because to take a vow like that and keep it, especially for a Kshatriya, the Kshatriyas are naturally inclined to more enjoyment than the Brahmana. And that's why they were generally allowed to have, even the Brahmanas were also allowed, but churches took advantage, and many of them had many, many wives. So, anyway, we can stop here. If there are any questions, reflections. Okay, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.